I will call the meeting to order and we can start with a roll call on introductions. So I'm Rachel Sprague. I am calling in from Lanai, and I am currently the chair of the council. Dawn?
Dawn Hager-Kirkland calling from Maui, and I think I'm the what was it? Co-chair. Is that right?
Yeah.
Vice chair.
Yeah.
Michelle?
Michelle Lefebvre, calling from Hilo, Big Island.
Great. Jay?
Hi, Jay Stone. I'm calling from Oahu.
Hi, Mary Alice. We're doing introductions. You are muted. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Chair, are you speaking to me?
Yes. Yeah.
My apologies for joining late. And I am Mary Alice Evans, the Director of the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, which serves as staff support to the Environmental Advisory Council.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, Tom Eisen with the Environmental Review Program of OPSD in a separate space from Mary Alice today.
Thank you. And Allison?
Allison Cato, Deputy Attorney General.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, or is that just a placeholder?
There's some other OP staff that's helping host the meeting and just keeping track of details.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, Dawn, Jay, and Michelle for all being here and making sure we have our quorum. So let's go. We don't have too many items on the agenda today, but let's go first. Do we need to approve the agenda?
No.
Or no? No. Okay. Sorry. Thank you, Mary Alice. I was like, I'm gonna have to I've been sitting in the meetings, but somehow there's always the little procedural pieces that I always forget which ones are happening. So I guess let's go first to the office to the OPSD director's update if you can, Alice. Thank you.
Well, we're at that point in our annual cycle where we haven't heard yet back on whether bills that we have proposed for the governor's bill package have been, governor has not made a final decision on them. So we're still waiting to hear. Most of our bills this year are to make potentially increase the ability of state and counties to approve housing. That's because Governor Green has made housing a priority for him and his administration. And so we have, I think, 6 or 7 bills, Allison, you probably know that better than I do, that would support financing and development of housing. I don't think any of them exempt landowners, developers from any of the provisions in Chapter 343 or the rules. I think that remains an important disclosure part of the process. And so we will, we will see where that goes. Our coastal zone management program is working actively to look at the impact of sea level rise on shoreline parcels and the special management areas. Dawn is familiar with that. So is Allison. And those are studies that are funded by NOAA and usually in competitive grant making processes. And they go forward regardless of the legislation because they're federally funded. And some of those results will be very interesting in terms of when those studies are completed, the kind of recommendations they make for protecting shoreline facilities, shoreline natural resources, in the face of climate change and sea level rise. So those are things that our office is working on. Let's see. We continue to work with DBED and support DBED as the applicant for projects that work with the Waikiki community to protect Waikiki, the residents and the businesses there. So that's a planning services piece that we're doing. And part of that, as Tom and the ERP staff is familiar with, was DBED being the applicant proposing agency for a final EIS for the Waikiki Beach Improvement and Maintenance Program, was initiated by DLNR and shaped by DLNR, but transferred to DBED because DBED has the Hawaii Tourism Authority and also is an advocate for supporting our economy, of which Waikiki is part of. So that, since we're in the challenge period, the 60-day period following the publication of the final EIS, which will be over what, Tom, in January, is that?
Actually, the challenge period is after the acceptance, because that's what would be challenged. So
good point.
challenge period hasn't begun yet. We're still in the process of reviewing the document for if it meets acceptability criteria.
Okay. Thank you for correcting me on that. Okay, so that will start after the governor makes his decision as to whether the final EIS meets the criteria in HAR 11.200.1-200.1. And once he makes that decision, and if that decision is to accept the final EIS, then the challenge period will start. Tom, any other news that you want to share with the council?
Oh, we just plug along, doing a lot of things. Doing the review of that final EIS was a time-consuming thing, and we're almost finished with it. Just getting the notice out and just doing all the things that need to be done, giving a lot of guidance and advice takes up a lot of time, but it seems to be a valuable service that people are happy to get. That's how we've been staying busy.
Yeah. There's some unfinished business that I want to call to the council's attention. The rules do need to be updated to comply with Act 152, Session Laws of Hawaii 2021. That was the law that made the changes to the council and reflected the transferred the council from Department of Health to the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. They're not substantive changes that would, well, they're in compliance with the state law. So they just reflect the changes in the state law. But it would be helpful if the council, the state law now requires that the council, that the OPSD consult with the council and take up amendments to the Hawaii administrative rules upon recommendation of the council. So that's why at some point, as the council's members have the capacity to engage with our staff on that, we would very much welcome that. Thank you, Chair. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Do folks have any questions?
I have a
Yeah.
comment about
Yes,
the
Tom.
exemptions. Was this what Mahina and Alnauna and our committee was working on, I think? It was. So I'm not a lawyer, but I'd be happy to work with any lawyer. And I'm looking at the whole diagram here to take a first stab at it. I'm concerned because I'm a planner, so I don't really recognize all the legalese language, but I'm happy to be on some committee to try to get it done. So
I think
if
there
anyone else,
might be a draft.
yeah,
That was done. So
Yeah.
it may be just a matter of looking at that draft and making sure that it reflects the amendments to 343.
okay. So could we get a copy? I feel like Alnana would have sent it to us too when she downloaded everything, but if you can send what you have and then, I'm not sure if we need to form a committee or it's just something that we can work on. I mean, does this violate sunshine law? I think that's my question, lawyer.
So to be clear, are we currently under agenda item 5?
I think we're under
Discussion
the
of upcoming
director's.
committee topics?
Yeah, I think we're under the director's report and then it kind of jumped to number 5.
Yeah, because just as a reminder, the board cannot discuss any subject that's not on the specifically listed on the agenda.
Okay, thanks. I think in this case, I think we were trying to clarify like what
Yeah.
the
Normally-
rule, because I was also not clear on what the rules, like what about it needed updating. So we can, Dawn, are you okay with deferring that,
Yeah.
like more conversation on that
Yeah.
as into that? I was intending, sorry, for number 5, I think it says committee. I think I meant it to say council. But just like topics that the EAC was going to, that the members had interest and thought in wanting to tackle as we go forward. And so it sounds like the rules is potentially one of those things.
Yeah.
I'll save it. Yeah,
To
I'll
just
save it for.
be clarified for sunshine law purposes,
Yeah.
because in order to even ask questions or discuss, the rules or rule amendments, that would actually need to be listed as a subject on the agenda.
Okay,
It would need to be.
that's helpful. I was just trying to understand like what the rule amendment actually was to start with. But I think that, okay, so maybe we should not ask more questions right now.
Because staff members can of course give reports, but in order to ask questions about them or the things that happened in the report or have any discussion, regardless of whether you make any kind of decision or anything, that normally has to be listed as a specific subject.
Okay, even if it's literally just asking like, what
Yes,
is the
yes.
rules update mean that
Yes.
she mentioned already?
Yes, because there's nothing about any rule update on the subject, on the agenda.
Okay,
Well, I apologize then for bringing it up.
sorry.
No, I mean, you can give reports. And if anyone wants further OIP guidance, I can provide that too.
Okay, that might be helpful because I guess then I am maybe not clear on like whether that then it sort of feels like then asking any question, no one's allowed to answer it.
That's actually correct, unless the report is, like the subject of the report is listed.
Okay.
Then it's fine.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll try. We'll we'll do our best.
I'll follow up with the email with the OIP guidance again.
Okay. Thanks.
So I have a
Okay.
question, if I
Thank
may.
you, Mary Alice.
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Sure.
So,
Thanks, Jane.
Allison, we couldn't put on an agenda item that says questions on director's report? Is
I
that
don't
is that
think
too
that would
general?
I think that would likely be a violation of
Okay,
sunshine law, from my understanding of OIP guidance.
okay,
That's why you generally can't have very general placeholders in just like such and such report. It has to actually have a subject like what topic, so that the public has notice of what is going to
I
be
see.
discussed at the meeting.
I understand. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mary Alice, for that. I think the folks who are here, are probably would like to help if there are any legislative things that we can do, but I don't know that any of us are the experts in that. So I think we may end up at the moment, given our capacity, sort of defer to you and staff to let us know if there's items that need our input or discussion. And I have a thought about the housing that we can bring up in item number 5. Okay. Well then let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the review and adoption of the meeting minutes from the November 2024 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? Do you need any additional time? All right, then I would entertain a motion to adopt the meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
To approve. Second from Dawn, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous, so I won't call for any opposed or abstentions. Thank you all. Michelle, would you like to give a update from the exemption committee?
Sure. Exemption committee met today to discuss the Department of Education's revised exemption list. We are not ready to take action today. We had a bunch of revisions to the list, so we will defer that action till next month's meeting. But it was a very productive meeting with DOE. We walked through the committee's comments. Onana was unable to attend as a member of the public, but since she had been part of earlier review, she sent me her comments via email, and I was able to share those as well. So DOE will be revising their exemption list and providing a revised list by the end of December, so we can agendize it for January. Next item, committee update. The only other list that was outstanding was Department of Hawaiian Homelands, which we haven't heard anything since January, so I'll probably drop that from the exemption committee agenda. There are no other outstanding lists. We haven't received any other lists. The next item was revised exemptions guidance. We had that on the agenda to discuss, but we didn't have time today, so no new update on that guidance. That is all. Oh, Rachel, you're muted.
Of course, sorry, thank you. So we were sort of blazing through this this agenda, and I put item number 5 on here with the intent to try to talk with the committee members about what items or what we feel like we might be able to approach, or if there's a way that we might want to think about making a decision about what to approach, and almost more of a there are a lot of options and very few people in sort of limited capacity. And so there are things like rules we've talked about. There's items like potentially housing. We've talked, Robin had led a lot of really great strategic planning and thinking about ways that the council could be useful, ways that the council could approach, when we've had more people, we've held forums to help sort of gather information, because even though we are experts in our own areas, none of us have a full breadth of expertise to make decisions or anything like that. And we advise anyway. We don't really, we're not acting on behalf of the state or anything like that. So I guess I wanted to start by potentially opening it up. Mary Alice, if you had any thoughts, or if to sort of hear from the other council members on where you think at the moment that you feel like we could be useful within the mandate of this group.
Let me let me throw something out there. It's not immediate, but the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development got a $6.6 million grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to, among other things, look at the regulatory requirements for permitting housing in Hawaii. And it's a 6-year grant, so we're not required to come up with a set of recommendations this year. But we will be hiring staff. We have, there'll be 3 staff assigned to this project. And they will be looking at regulations that make it more expensive, time-consuming to permit housing, and looking at the balancing values that those regulations represent. Because every regulation in Hawaii is there because a stakeholder group, a constituent group wanted them, felt that they were important enough to require would-be home builders, people who want to add ADUs to their lots, people, landowners who want to develop housing for rent or for sale, should comply with. And one of the things that this is happening across the country is that those layers of regulation have built up over time, and they do include Chapter 343, which is regarded as a really important protection for the public when a state or county agency is contemplating expending money and using state or county land and other sensitive type of projects that are listed in the statute as requiring an EA or an EIS. So from a housing perspective, we will be asking the council to give us guidance on whether there are aspects of 343 and its rules that burden housing and do not bring a counterbalancing value to the community. It's kind of broad, but just wanted to kind of let you know where the office will be going and where we would like your input on as we move forward with this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Michelle or Dawn? Or is this too open-ended at the moment?
Well, I just have a real comment. So, is there a framework in moving this direction, Mary Alice, that you can provide the members so that we'll be able to, I'm not sure if it's framework or maybe lawyer help or attorney general help to help us with a framework for what the department is asking from the council. Is that about right?
Well, we haven't actually asked yet in a formal sense. So I was, just putting this, kind of for your early attention. I think what we could do first is give you a copy of our grant application that was approved and awarded, so that you'd have that scope of work that we're working on. And then as we make progress, and we will be hiring a vendor or vendors to help us with looking at the regulations. And at that point, we will have some work products that we can then provide the council to get comments back from the council on how, whether the, vendor's analysis, if it includes comments on chapter 343 or HAR 11200.1 are acceptable or not acceptable, or that would be very valuable to the office. Our work products eventually will have to go up to the office of the Department of Housing and Urban Development as a final report on the project in 6 years. And there may be a point at which some of the recommendations put forward by vendors are accepted by us and made into recommendations to the governor and the legislature. And I would want the council's thoughts on what some of those are, but we're not nearly there yet. We haven't actually hired to fill the positions we got with these federal funds, and we certainly are nowhere near putting an RFP on the street to procure a vendor to help us with this. So quite a ways down the line, but I wanted you guys to have a heads up that we're going to be, doing this work, and that we'll want your input on where it goes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the things I was just thinking about was that we spent a lot of time on policies and procedures and sort of setting up the like the new practices and language around the focus of the EAC, and I think this came up quite a bit in the strategic planning as well as all along the way, is that it's extremely broad and it could touch on almost anything within the environment within the state, which touches on almost anything from development to to conservation to marine policy. And so, like, one of the things that has been in my head as this has gone along is whether it might make sense for the environmental council going forward, just depending on what's coming up and depending on the composition of the members, to talk about what are some topics that are relevant and needed for thought and input. And Mary Alice, you bringing up housing is, I think, a really maybe one of the top things, if it's one of the top issues from the governor. And I think maybe a year or two ago it had come up with like cesspools or something, things like in wastewater management. And yeah, and just whether it might make sense to sort of to decide on what might be a focus topic for the next 6 months or the next year, that would be the focus of having a forum or asking experts to weigh in, and to provide us with information and background to help guide or answer questions that are coming from OPSD. That's one kind of framework that we could use, because I think otherwise there's a little bit of a potential to just sort of feel like we go from meeting to meeting reviewing folks' exemptions and not really talking about much substantive otherwise. And also we could also say that maybe reviewing exemptions is the only thing we can handle until there are some, at least 6 members on the appointed to the committee, which is I don't know, I would also consider sort of on the table. Jay or Michelle?
But to be honest, I'm actually thinking more of the annual report right now,
Mm.
January. So that's what I'm looking, because the meeting minutes, there was going to be a draft distributed so that we could take a look at it, and then, right.
I admit I haven't had a chance go to dive deeply into what Onana sent. I was assuming that there were previous versions of the annual report.
There's one from 2023. But
Yeah.
I don't understand. I'm
Just to, maybe I can insert Zay and
Yes.
Rachel. So, Michelle sent me the annual report and I did a draft and sent it back to her. She did a
Okay.
draft, sent it back to me. I added stuff. So I think
Okay.
we're looking at finalizing the draft.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But I didn't, because of the agenda, the way it is, I wasn't sure where we would talk about it. So, yeah. Because the agenda doesn't note it, doesn't mention draft report.
No, because I didn't have it as it wasn't on my radar as
Yeah.
something that was.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
where it is it's being finalized.
It's a very straightforward summary of what we did last year in the same format. So, the list that the exemption committee reviewed, the
Okay.
topics that there's no recommendations. There's, it's just very, I think it's 2 pages, reporting on what the council did last year.
And we also talked to Ron and Anona, we asked the committee members from the past, whatever they're interested in to give us an update. So it wasn't just us. So we asked everyone.
So that sounds like it would be ready for review and either revisions from or review and approval at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think so. Michelle, you think? Yeah.
It sounds like it's
Did we
pretty
have-
straightforward.
Did
And
we have a
yeah.
deadline this month to submit?
By the
I think we
15th
have,
of January.
Uh,
It needs
So-
to be filed OPSD by January 15th.
so this is a sunshine law question. So, Michelle will finalize it or I'll finalize it and then we'll send it to ERP and then ERP submits it to all 4 members. Is that how it works? So we're not violating sunshine law?
I think we post it with the meeting packet,
Oh, okay.
and then it's available to the public and we send the meeting packet to the members. But we post the meeting packet at the same time as we send it to the members on our website, so that, and possibly at the Lieutenant Governor's office with the agenda. So
Okay.
Everyone who has an interest in this agenda item can see what the council will be considering for action.
Okay. So once we finalize it, it'll go on to be agendized for the next meeting in January. And then that package, which is open to sunshine law, will be reviewed by everyone. So we will make the decision at the January-ish meeting, whatever meeting that is.
January 7th.
January 7th.
So it'll
All
be,
right.
so then Don, you'll need it to get it to Rachel,
Yeah.
before the meeting so she can review it and add it to the agenda.
So I was going to bring this up as part of item number 6, but I am going to be overseas at a conference starting the week before the January meeting. And so I was going to talk to Dawn as the vice chair if you were able to do the agenda and chair that meeting. But this was also a little bit of a question: is 3 people quorum?
3 people.
Yes, I think you have.
Majority of a total,
It's a majority of the
because you have a
appointed
special quorum.
Seated members. You have the wonderful, unique, in my experience, unique law that says your quorum is a majority of the seated members, not a majority of the seats that your council is
Entitled.
to.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
great.
I
okay.
remember that was a big deal, and some of this came from the last time the rules were revised, and there were a lot of issues with significant delays in appointments that would mean that the council was sort of not able to have quorum for like a year at a time. So I'm glad that is the way it is. But that sort of just that I guess brings up the question of Dawn and Jay and Michelle. Does January 7th work for all of you? And Dawn, are you able to to chair that meeting. Are you willing to deal?
Yes. Do I have a choice? No. But yes.
I really appreciate it.
And just mentioning that the board packet deadline is different from the agenda deadline or the notice deadline.
Okay.
So it's at, I think it's 2 business days. They recently changed it last year or this past session. But I think
So
it
I
was
can
a change.
I can work with the ERP to get the whatever, the templates and the agenda and make sure I meet the deadlines. Yeah.
You have a template. I think
Yeah.
your previous one is your template.
Okay.
So the notice deadline is 6 days and the board packet deadline is 2 days.
You know, I'm a planner, so I usually do it like 30 days in advance. So
Well, it sounds like you're going to be ready with the draft
I'll be ready. Yeah.
sort
Yes.
of before, even a week before, or more than that anyway, which is fine because there's not that.
Yeah.
If I have it before I think I leave the 3rd, which is the Friday before, I can at least make sure that I can at least review it.
Okay.
But I'm sure you did a wonderful job, and I doubt I will have much to add.
Can you go over those deadlines again? It's 2 days for what? And
It's 6 days for the notice requirement and 2 days for the board packet deadline.
Is
Meaning
that
that after 2 days, you cannot
Yeah.
give anything to board members.
Is that business days or calendar days? Just to
Believe
sure
it's
you mean
business days. I'd have to
Yeah.
check the law again. It used to be 48 hours and they changed it to 2 days.
okay. So inconclusive.
I mean, I have to check the act again.
No
So-
worries.
so the notice for the next meeting needs to be posted within 6 days of the next meeting. Is that what you're saying, Allison?
Yes.
Notice and the agenda with
And by
the
notice, we talk about,
agenda.
we mean agenda
Okay.
generally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the law is called notice.
We usually decide at the meeting before when our next meeting will be, and then work 6 days backwards, identify when agendas will be, and then we'll get an email from ERP committee members or committee chairs, and council chair will get a notification that agendas are due on. But we already have it in our calendars based on usually this discussion at the end of each. But usually the board doesn't come into play. I think the board's only coming into play because of the annual report. But so.
Because 6 days would be January 1st. I guess it has to back up to Tuesday, the 31st, December 31st.
That's a good note. Thank you.
Okay.
I mean, just more generally, Dawn, Jay, or Michelle, do you have any thoughts or feedback on just the overall sort of council topics or approach
Is this
beyond the annual report?
Is this number 5? Are we
Yes.
on that? Okay. So I did talk to Tom. This is a information committee update, INO update. And I'm sorry, I forgot to probably tell you that I had made some inroads about potentially doing a meeting for INO. So because I used to be on the committee, Rachel, with Mary, and so we used to just Mary would do all the agendas. Anyway, so I talked to Tom separately and Michelle separately about doing an exemptions committee seminar to make up for last year. And I talked to ERP staff about using the Zoom link. So I think we're looking at end of February, March to hold a forum. And so I think the final details still have to be nailed down.
Mm-hmm.
Great. All right. Well, I think what I'm hearing is that at least for the near term, um, topics that and issues that we're likely tackling are the annual report, a exemptions forum, sort of pending questions from OPSD on potential areas that the council may assist in feedback regarding housing, and that might include additional forums or other approaches that we might want to take at some point in the future. But that's sort of a pending question, but something for folks to start thinking about, and then continuing to encourage boards and commissions to appoint other folks, or encouraging people to apply to boards and commissions in hopes of some action during the upcoming session.
There's one more though. It's the legislation committee,
Yeah.
right? Our
Well,
introduction.
there's a number of other committees. Legislation was one of the other ones that Mary Alice talked about. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're actively trying to meet with Senator Gabbard and Representative Lowen, right? And then I volunteered last time to be part of that committee and then to track the legislation. So I don't know, my opinion is it seems to me like that's a lot for now. At least the first quarter, I would think. And then we could probably reassess at that time.
Good, yeah, because that's what I mean. I'm just listing off those items was seeming like that was probably a full plate, and possibly more than even sort of standing by on some of those topics is maybe even is about probably the max that we can handle capacity wise. Any other thoughts or input at this? I don't want to belabor or drag this out, but want to make sure folks have a chance to reflect if they have thoughts. All right. Well, thank you for that. I think, right, so just reviewing, the next meeting will be January 7th. Dawn will graciously chair. Agenda items are due to Dawn by December 30th. And the primary topic probably will be the reviewing the annual report, a little bit of homework prior.
Can I just add regarding those dates, we need to look at the calendars to make sure it all works with our ability to post things and all that. So I'll get to you if we need to adjust those. It looks like we may need to push it back a day or so, but we'll follow up with those details.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and people rightfully so in and out, and hopefully out for a good portion of that time frame. So thank you. Thanks for that reminder, Tom. So some of those dates will be a little bit pending, but we will track that. All right. Is there anything else I am forgetting before adjourning?
Do we set a date for sure for the meeting for January?
I thought it was January 7th.
January 7th. It's the first
Okay.
Tuesday, because there wasn't any issue with that, sounds like.
Okay. Just making sure.
Thank you. All right. Do I call for a motion to adjourn, or do I just call the meeting adjourned?
Rachel, Robert's rule says you don't have to have a motion to adjourn, but some people like to do it. So
Up to you.
Chair's call.
Like I said, I've been in meetings that do that, like just go back or that some that do one and some do the other. I will, unless there's any objections, I will adjourn the meeting. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you all. Have a wonderful holiday season. Stay healthy, and everyone here is getting the plague. So I was just like people in and out. So thank you all, and have a good rest of your afternoon.
Aloha.
Thank
Happy
Bye.
holidays.
Thank you.
Aloha.